So, this other question here, if back in the days when they went after Capone, or I've spent a lot of time with Rudy Giuliani, you know who he is, how he cleaned the streets in New York. The other day, we're at an Italian restaurant here in Florida. We're having lunch with, a couple folks. Rudy is there. The owner of the restaurant comes in and says, oh, my God, when I lived in New York, you cleaned up the streets. He automatically went to, when I was in New York, you clean up the streets, and how he was able to work with changing the laws to, figure out a way to how to go get them. And even back in the days, they didn't get Capone on anything but on taxes. So there's many ways if the government really wants to target somebody to ruin their lives, you got a lot of cards to use, right? You can do, let's use rape allegation. It's not hard to do. There's a lot of people that have been there that never committed a crime, but, you kind of have to, prove your argument. Hey, let's do trafficking. Hey, let's do taxes. Hey, let's do this. Do you think this is going to be one of those things that if they really want to target these guys, they're going to keep using their cards until they get them? Or is this truly they're only focused on these two allegations that they're making?
No, I think you raise a really good point, and I think that's exactly what's going on in this case. I think that's why this investigation initially started in April. They seized, a lot of their belongings, devices, things like that. And I think it's just been this very lengthy search for any evidence of crime. And I think as far as the actual charges that are being investigated, I think those are going to be proven demonstrably false. I think everything we've seen shows that the prosecution, it's such a stretch. They're trying to pigeonhole human trafficking into a set of facts that just it doesn't fit. And again, the rape allegation is entirely unsupported. I think the evidence, which again, unfortunately, at this point in the proceedings, I just can't comment on, but I think there's damning evidence showing that these are not charges that would ever be proven. So I think the fear is, and also one other fact is, the other allegation is of an organized crime group, which includes the two women who were just released on house arrest, which I think, again, is a big, I guess it speaks a lot as to what the evidence is that during this investigation, now they've released the women on house arrest, the same women that are allegedly part of this organized criminal group. So I do not feel that they're ever going to be able to prove any of the charges that are currently being investigated. I just think they're using this preventative arrest to prolong their detention in hopes of actually being able to find evidence of crime, which they don't currently have.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting part, because if they do that, it's targeting. You know it's targeting. Is there anybody that if, for example, I keep going political because Tate is political, and that's where you can do all the other stuff. It's one thing, but he calls out a lot of people that are not liking the call-outs that he makes. So when Trump's running and they had their RNC who they wanted to be at the RNC, well, Dana White spoke and he says, look, this is all I know about the guy. 20 years ago when nobody gave us a place to go and do our first event for UFC, he said yes. I'm going to back this guy up because Vegas said no, this said no, and he said yes. And he helped us stay in business. Okay, so that gets the audience of UFC to say, man, shoot, if Dana's defending Trump, maybe I ought to, right? Hey, Barack Obama. Hey, I'm Oprah Winfrey. Listen, this is the guy we've been looking for. We've been looking, okay, boom, support. You know what? If Oprah says it, I got to kind of support this. Hey, the other day, Oprah, hey, as much as I'm the one that found Dr. Oz, I'm not going to go against Dr. Oz for Dr. Oz. I'm going to go for Fetterman. I think Fetterman's better. People are like, wait a minute, that's your guy. But you're going, there's a lot of weight in who supports who and says what, right? Politically. How much, is there any other, because ever since, he spoke about his Muslim religion and videos were posted about him going out there and praying and, how he feels about the westernized, Christianity, the standards, all of that. Is there support from a sect or a community that has reached out to say, Tina, how can we help? We would like to get involved to help. Is there anything like that taking place, or is it silence? No one's saying anything. They're just kind of saying, well, let's see what happens here. We're going to keep our hands off of this.
There are many efforts by people who want to help. It hasn't really come from some sort of organized sect of anything like that, but we have so many individuals reaching out, offering support and help. And, I think it's a little tricky in cases like this where it is political, as you said, and people are like the Tates are very outspoken, particularly Andrew. I think sometimes there is, reluctance from people to publicly show support and to come out when they still do support the individuals. So I experienced this in Jussie's case, where he had a lot of support, a lot of people who would privately message him, I believe in you, I believe you. But those same people felt that in this climate, they couldn't come forward and publicly support him because of the tremendous backlash. Because again, there was this false narrative, and based on the information that was put forward by, the one-sided leaks and everything else, people believed a different set of facts than what the, actual facts were. And based on that, they didn't want to come out and support somebody who may have done what people were saying he did. So I think there's a lot of that in this case too, where there certainly is a lot of private support. Now, who would be willing to come forward publicly? I'm not sure, because I think there is a lot of backlash.
I bet there is. But maybe some need to see this and hear this to say, hey, we're going to come out and support. Maybe they need to hear this message and say, hey, let's make a phone call and offer what we can.